Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about WEBTOON digital comics. We're going to talk about damage control. And WEBTOON was kind of making the rounds to a lot of the comic book sites a couple of days ago, trying to do damage control because the terms of their original contracts, the current originals contracts, were apparently leaked. Now, for those of you who don't know what a WEBTOON original is versus a regular WEBTOON deal, anybody can post on WEBTOON. Some people can get paid on WEBTOON with ad revenue and Patreon if they hit a certain page view threshold. But originals is when you are signing a contract with WEBTOON to make your comic exclusive to WEBTOON. And according to one creator who went out to Reddit, and that thread's been deleted, but they said that it was a predatory contract. They basically own you, own your comic, and they can act as your agent and make all deals on your behalf and all that stuff. And, if it wasn't true, well, WEBTOON's been making the rounds on all these comic book sites now trying to debunk it.
But other comic people that worked with WEBTOONs have come out and made comments on Twitter, kind of saying, yes, the 3-year exclusivity thing's true, and other things, from their point of view, some of the things were indeed true, they said. Yeah,
so now we've got a little more fuel to throw on the fire, and I saw this yesterday, and they've deleted the original thread, but they're still answering questions. This is in the WEBTOON's subreddit, r/WEBTOONs on Reddit. Somebody who says that they were an originals creator currently, and they're going to answer some questions, and some of the answers are not terribly good. Now, they did take that post down. I think this was probably an attempt, just if I had to guess, probably an attempt by WEBTOONs to send somebody out there to the same thread where the contract details were leaked to try to do some damage control, and it didn't go well.
They never said what comic they worked on or named anything, did they?
I don't think so, no.
And then people in the comments also said the same thing. They said it feels like damage control.
Yeah. So because everything was kind of sunshine and kittens.
I want to say again, without seeing the actual contract. Now, and again, contracts from a couple years ago are not the same as the contracts now. So if somebody had a contract from a little bit before, it might have had better terms. We don't know what terms they had. We also don't have the contract in front of us. So we cannot tell you definitively whether or not this is true. We have to see the contract to know that.
So let's go through some of the stuff now, guys. Again, this is just cautionary. Every time you get a contract, regardless of what it is, regardless of where it comes from, you need to read it. And if you have pushback, you are allowed to push back. Now, it doesn't mean that the person presenting you with the contract is going to agree to your terms, but you're more than welcome to take a red pen to it and be like, I don't like this part. Could you clarify this part?
Hire a lawyer.
Hire a lawyer.
I know it's expensive. Trust me, it'll cost you so much more if you don't.
Yeah, because we've been in situations before where we've signed a contract with one party and then that party got sold, and then you're dealing with totally different people. So even though there might have been an understanding, like you understood the terms verbally or whatever with that party, once they get sold, they're going to want to adhere to the letter of the law and how it's of the contract and how it's written. And if some of the language is dubious or unclear, you really need to
We have attorneys that handle contracts.
Yeah.
And it's for a reason.
Yep.
Anyway, continue.
Yep, past experience. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
It's interesting. They added to the rules list, do not overpost negative press, boyfriends.
Yeah, I saw it the other day. That was there the other day. That was about that because there was a bunch of stuff about that one Boyfriends comic. I don't know the details. Pinky Boo was explaining it to me. She knew all about it.
Well, Boyfriends, wasn't that one of the people that came out and complained about the terms of the deal, the creator? Yeah. So they're like, oh, don't be overly negative.
But that wasn't what it was about. That was about, there was issues in Boyfriends comic prior. That was about that.
All right. Probably shippers or something. I don't know. But let's go out to CBR. They have this too. I think Heidi McDonald was the one that actually asked them about it. So yeah, and answers obtained by the Beat, WEBTOON denied they could purchase 100% of an IP. They said that, basically they're trying to put a good light on otherwise negative terms.
The way they answered it danced around the actual question. Like when you'd ask, like, okay, is this an issue? Well, they didn't actually say it wasn't. They just danced around it most of the time.
Yeah. They did dance around. It was very corporate, and they tried to answer as best they could without, throwing kerosene on the fire. But a lot of people here, they're pulling up all these tweets from other creators. My contract is not even this bad. I'm already ready to kill myself. As an OG creator on their platform, to see how contracts have evolved over time to be more predatory, it's been very disappointing. Again, I've seen the contracts, but I saw one like 5 or 6 years ago.
Right. They're very different now.
They're very different. They were trying to get fish to jump into the boat. So I think the original deals were pretty decent. They said
they saw they were losing a lot of money.
Yes.
They probably tightened their grip.
Yeah. Now, Lottie, WEBTOON Originals VTuber, says, make no mistake, the contracts now are basically on par with the industry standards. Just they used to be so much better. Yeah. Publishers are tightening their grip on creatives now too, because again, I think they're seeing these people get big and they're getting big off of their platform, and then they're taking that and making money elsewhere. They want to own everything you do. They want a cut of everything you do. Bun says, I speak about this publicly very rarely. I've been offered 2 contracts by one of the big boys during my time in comics. They were so bad. It's what ultimately made me seek out work in more financially stable fields. Yeah, it comes down to seeking legal counsel.
This is what we talked about before. Let's talk about what happened since.
Yeah, so this is just kind of a refresher if this is your first video. So they're doing the damage control, and then this came up yesterday, and the post was up. It was an AMA, asked me questions. I'm a WEBTOON Originals author, and they took it down, but the answers are still up. Did you sell your property to WEBTOON? Somebody said, and how cooperative was WEBTOONs? And
was it worth it? Et cetera,
yeah,
et cetera.
the poster said they have the right. This is very corporate. I'm telling. They sent this person out. This is my gut feeling. I can't prove it, but it's my gut feeling. They have the rights to the project for 3 years with a lot of caveats. I wouldn't call it selling it to them because it's closer to co-owning for a limited time. Literally the exact same thing that WEBTOON said. Mm-hmm. Content-wise, I was allowed to do pretty much whatever I wanted. Again, exactly what WEBTOON corporate said. Otherwise, there were definitely ups and downs. Might need a better clarification of what you mean by cooperative to be able to answer the question. Overall, I liked working with WEBTOONs. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but I'll happily do it again. I would have continued, but I really felt like my series has run its course. It wouldn't be fair to myself or my readers to continue it. For me, Originals paid significantly better than Canvas and Patreon. Now, I don't know what they're offering. Back in the day, I heard it was about $2,000 to $3,000 a month stipend that you got.
Yeah, but I don't know now.
I don't know. Then there was a bonus, I think a view bonus on top of that, but you were expected to grind. Like you were constantly cranking out content. Thank you for having the courage to end your series. Thank you. It was a difficult choice, mostly financial. I am, to put it bluntly, poor, and the WEBTOONs money really helped.
Sorry. I know it's not funny, but it is. I'm sorry. I'm working comics. Oh,
you're working in comics. So basically, I took the deal because I needed money, right? But it wouldn't have been right. It was a difficult decision. Everyone in my life pressured me against it, saying it's easy work and an important paycheck, but I did it for myself and my readers. Okay. I honestly can't shake the feeling that this one is damage control an undercover partner.
But they're not answering it. Like that person didn't answer, did they?
No, they were just dancing around the issue.
I trust those who say I'm the author of whatever.
They can't say I'm the author of whatever, probably because of an NDA. But I do believe that they probably put somebody up to it because the answers are very, very much.
Well, wait, no, go back here though. They go on. I'm an Originals creator myself, After Dark, and thankfully I haven't dealt with a lot of stuff other creators have dealt with, but everyone's experiences are different with WEBTOON. I'm not going to say everything is sunshine and rainbows just because I've had decent experience. I think the contracts are always changing, and they are. Yes. That I do know is true. Yes,
that is 100% real. And again, it's very appropriate that everybody keeps using Lore Olympus for their thumbnails because I think it's not their fault necessarily, but I think Lore Olympus was incredibly successful. It was a breakout success. And I think she had one of the old deals and she was able to take her book wherever she wanted to, and she could cut the Netflix deal herself. And I think they got cut out of that and they're like, damn it, we're leaving money on the table. We got to tighten our grip, right? Kind of feels like that, right? That it's a plant. But according to OP's responses, they're working on a comedy comic. I think there are a couple other ones here. Here's another question, right? How many readers do you have to have for actually getting paid? Meaning, is there a rough estimate of how popular a series has to be for WEBTOON to take interest in making it an Originals? My understanding is that Canvas is primarily non-paid work the authors do for hobby. And they didn't call it that when we were there, but basically if you uploaded on your own and you hit a certain view threshold, they would give you ad revenue, and then they would give you a bonus via Patreon. And we were making, I'll tell you, we were making about $1,000, $1,200 a month, I think, on Patreon.
How much we did, I don't even remember.
Yeah, it was something like that. And that was based on view count. So we were like toward the upper end. That was for Shadowbinders, and that was just
that was years ago.
That was our leftovers. That was like our, like, this is stuff.
We weren't putting a lot of the new stuff up there.
No, we weren't putting the new stuff up. But so, I mean, it was good little extra money every month. For an originals project, very little of your actual income will be ad revenue. That might depend on how big your project is. So the amount of readers doesn't affect your income. The most important part of maintaining a readership is they'll only renew your contract if you have a steady readership. Doesn't need to be huge. I was offered to renew all the way up to when I decided to stop, and I had under 500,000 readers. Only.
Yeah, but honestly,
on WEBTOON,
that's not crazy numbers on WEBTOON. No.
For Canvas,
we had a lot. How many did we have? It was.
Oh, we have more than that. I don't know. I have to look and see. We had the stuff up, and then I pulled it down, and then I put some of it back up, but it was under a different. It wasn't the original account. Does that make sense? Like I
don't know.
I did something because I had to tie it into the Patreon or something.
So
I forget what I did. Anyway,
they offered me the position to move to originals when I had about 30,000 readers, but I know plenty of creators who had more and weren't reached out to. It's not just about readership, but also the actual content of your story, what niche you're writing in. They said, for example, horror has a lot less readers than romance. So the expectations are lower, which that's true. Romance, it seems to be WEBTOONs now, like romance is their number one. Your consistency in putting up content, how quickly your comic grew, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's probably true. I mean, that part I will say is probably correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true. Because they're probably looking at, like, does this thing have a future? You know, can we basically, what was it like they used to do in Rhett and Link? Like, will it taco? Will it pie? Will it whatever? And they're like, will it turn? Can we turn this into something we can sell books or TV shows or something? Did you get burnout? They're basically asking. I didn't become burnout from the time pressure. The episodes were much shorter than many other originals. I definitely felt burnout over time, though, just from working on the same project for so long, which is part of why I decided to stop. I didn't personally experience what you're describing. It sounds horrifying. 4 all-nighters a week. This is what the one creator.
True Beauty?
True Beauty, yeah.
Probably True Beauty's good, by the way. I'm sure it's probably true.
Yeah.
Because we worked on comics, and each page would take you, what, like 12 hours?
Yeah, so we made the mistake. I made the mistake of when we first started Shadowbinders of doing more detailed kind of painterly type work, because I was like, oh, well, it's, I can do whatever I want digitally. And it's like, no. Then that was like, okay, then you had to like maintain that. And it's like, yeah, I can't maintain it because we worked ahead at first before we launched the comic. We had like a month's worth of strips ahead, and it became very clear early on. It's like, yeah, I can't keep the pace on this. So it became more and more
3 days a week.
Then went to 3 days a week.
Updates a week because people wanted more and more and more. And it's like, you have to understand too, we had little children.
Yes.
And you worked full-time job.
Yes.
So it was bad.
I'm going to be honest, it about killed me. I mean, it really did. That's
one of the reasons we quit.
Yeah.
And people were very demanding.
They were, okay. For me, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, was when people were grateful that we were updating and they were really cool and supportive. Then they started to become more and more demanding. Then I was like, well, guys, I can give you the 3 pages a week if it's black and white. And I'll have to color it because coloring literally doubles or sometimes even triples the amount of time it takes to do a page. Oh, that wasn't good enough.
No. But I will say WEBTOONs by far had the most positive audience.
Yes.
Most understanding and accepting audience of any of the places we posted. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again because it's true. The audience at WEBTOONs at the time, I can't speak to it now, at the time were very, they made you want to keep going. Like they were very appreciative.
They're cheerleaders.
They were very, excited. They were very, positive about it. And if you had to take a break, they were fine with it. Like they were so nice at the time. I can't speak to it now, but at the time it was like one of the reasons we did it as long as we did, I think, was because we went there and the people were so, encouraging and engaging, and they were very engaged. I'm not saying they weren't on our website. They were. And there were a lot of people that were really nice on the website too. I'm not going to say there weren't, but there were definitely way more people that were like, where's my free?
Yeah. And they became, we noticed a shift in the audience. I mean, we did it for about 5 years, and we noticed a definite shift in the audience from when we started to where we ended. And I just got sick of it. I got sick of the people. I'm like, I can't kill myself and miss my kids growing up to give you people free comics, and you're just going to bitch about it.
It took them years and years to do it again, which broke my heart because it was really important to me. But that's another story entirely.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Anyway, more questions asked, more questions answered. Number one, if it's an arrangement of IP co-ownership, to what extent is WEBTOON's ownership and what are their limitations? They said WEBTOONs owns a minority percentage of the IP for a few years before it returns to you. Again,
they said 3.
They said, yeah. It does limit you in posting your comics elsewhere, some merch sale percentages, and in cases like having your comic adapted to other platforms like TV shows.
Wait, so it does limit you. So you have to go through them.
Yes.
Which is what people said.
Which is what they said. How many hours? You can't
just do it on your own.
You can't just do it on your own. You can't be like, well, I'm going to publish my comic here, but I'm going to take it to Netflix on my own.
They said. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah, exactly what they said. How many hours you work within a week and cost for any support you require. I typically finish my workload within a single work day. Sometimes have my boyfriend help me out with coloring, but I didn't pay him for that. I just helped him with his own comics. Number 3, what is the minimum amount of readership to be considered profitable in WEBTOONs?
I think it varies.
Yeah.
It's just I'm not sure. I do think it varies. I think that she's correct in that.
Yeah, I think and I think everybody's deal is different too. I think that some people, I'll be honest, I think some people who get less views might actually get more money if they're already known, because they were pulling for a while. They were trying to pull like Marvel people over to the platform. And I think they were paying them more to come over. They were pulling YouTubers over at one point, I remember. Not us, but you know.
They're lost.
They're lost.
And this next one. When it comes to negotiating contracts, what are the steps you'd recommend creators to take? Did you involve a literary agent? If so, how does getting them involved look like? Well, literary agents aren't necessary for WEBTOONs. Personally, I didn't. I just read it with my dad and brought up via email points I wanted changed and what I wanted them to reflect. If you're going to contract, get a lawyer to look at it. Is your dad
a lawyer?
You know, unless you're very familiar, unless you have lots and lots of experience with contracts, you know what to watch out for. Do not do it by yourself.
Nope.
Especially if it's your first couple that you're really excited about, because you might get screwed. A literary agent is not necessary for WEBTOONs. Now, literary agent, you will need, not always, but a lot of times you will need a literary agent to approach like big publishing houses or things like that, because some will not look at submissions without an agent because they don't want to be accused of stealing something.
Yes.
I know that applies also to like show pitches and things like that. But some places will look at it. For example, we almost got Crimson Wren picked up at First Second before we had a literary agent.
Scholastic was interested too, kind of, but I actually pitched Scholastic's editor at the time with Crimson Wren directly, and she was like, yeah, I mean, she said we normally don't do like adventure type comics because they're not big sellers for us, which, you know, but she was like, yeah, you know, good luck with it. And we
almost got First Second, but what happened was they had something that was actually for older audiences, but was kind of be steampunky and similar-ish.
Yeah.
Not the same story. It's hard to explain. But there was somebody who kind of had a very nepotistic deal, but that's another story entirely.
Yes.
And they passed up, but they went right to meeting. Like it was like within a week they had it through a meeting and had an answer, which is not normal. But that some places have just rejected outright. It just depends on the place. But usually, if you're going to go to publishing houses or pitches for TV shows, you really should get an agent.
Yeah.
If you can get one. But WEBTOONs, I don't think you're going to need one. Even though it would be nice to have one because they might be able to negotiate it more for you.
So they asked, when it comes to marketing, what they do. She said, I'm not sure they committed to anything with me. They just kind of use my comic as they saw fit in advertisements off the website.
Yeah, but because I mean, I'd want to know, like, are you going to promote me? And when are you going to promote me? And how much are you going to promote me?
Does it change what you're getting paid, though? I guess that's the thing. Like, if your pay is contingent on views, then you need to be like, okay, I need you to commit, you know, this much to promoting my comic, because there's so many comics on that site. It's same with publishing. Like, you publish. I was
going to say publishing too. You have to negotiate that marketing in there.
If not, you're going to be marketing your own book. Because they're not gonna promote your book unless it's in your contract. And what happens is people get these deals, and sometimes the deals are contingent on your platform. And there was one case I remember I listened to a podcast one time where the guy got a publishing deal, and they gave him the publishing deal because of his platform they had on social media. Well, to get the book done, he basically quit social media, but he thought, well, that's okay because they're going to promote the book for me, and then they didn't, and then the book fell flat, and he didn't get another deal.
Yeah, and I know of well, I'm not going to name names, but one person does a lot of stuff for Scholastic. Their agent negotiated marketing, which is why they were promoted like heavily through Scholastic and other places, because the marketing was negotiated in. Otherwise, you're going to be expected to do a lot of it yourself.
Yep.
So another reason why an agent comes into play. But if you were doing a contract with them, I would want to know, like, well, how you can use as you see fit, but what are you going to do for me? Like, well, how are you going to market it to promote, to boost me? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
How often are you going to promote it? Like, how often are you going to share it to the readers? How often are you going to run the banner ads? Whatever.
This person said, I hope you don't mind my asking, if you were to work with them again, what are the things you would do differently? And also, I'm putting together a mini playbook for creators to refer to when dealing with them. What would you recommend? They said, I'm happy to have helped and shared. I would work with WEBTOON again someday. I think for one, I would choose a project less near and dear to my heart. And I would demand more communication regarding advertising.
See? It's almost like I know what I'm flipping talking about. Yeah. Don't sell your babies, because if you do, and they're gonna want some. They own the basically limited. She's limited on what she can do with the rights to it, basically. But what I told you was demand more communication regarding advertisements. It's something you have to negotiate in. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yep.
Please listen to what I'm telling you.
Yep. Here's another question. Let's see here. I have another question. Once WEBTOON reaches out to you with an offer and a contract to sign, is there a specific timeline by which you have to launch the WEBTOON? They said when you sign the contract, you're also signing a schedule for supplying WEBTOONs with the episodes. That's true.
Yeah.
I had my comic start up a few months after I signed the contract, so I had time to organize everything and build a solid buffer. I'd imagine you could ask for longer if that's needed, but I couldn't tell you how long they're willing to wait.
What was interesting to me, though, is I thought, okay, this is confusing to me. I thought they already had a comic with a bunch of followers, which is what got their attention in the first place. Is this another comic they did?
I think so.
In addition to? Because I was going to say you already had that
ended.
comic.
It might have been they ended one and then they started.
Okay, because that makes more sense. Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, a lot of people just continue with what they have. So that's why I'm confused.
They said, yeah, this person was drawing for a decade before they got picked up. They said that it takes them 8 hours to write, draw, and typeset 30 to 35 panels. Holy hell.
Yeah, but WEBTOONs, let's be honest here. A lot of the panels are very simplistic compared to like other. Back in the day we did webcomics, they were a lot more involved.
Yeah, WEBTOONs now is like a close-up of a hand, a close-up of an eye.
Sometimes it's just like a fuzzy, like, you know, a gradated something for 3 panels and then a couple words. It's like you're screening it down, like you're scrolling through it more like a film. Yeah. So you're 30 to 30, that might sound impressive until you actually look at what the and we're talking like panels, not a page. Right. Like a regular comic, you might have like 8 panels on a page. Yeah. So you're talking, you know, the per panel, because it's endless scroll usually.
Yeah. Okay, so this is interesting. How much money do you make in ad revenue? This person says, I don't think I'm allowed to say a specific amount according to my contract, but pre-taxes, I made $80 an hour. What? Okay, so break it down. Well, you can probably math it out.
That's for ad revenue and salary.
Okay.
But they all did their work in one day.
Yeah.
So
that's...
If you work like, you know, one day and you did like, you know,
$160.
Or you did like 16 hours, you know, you're going to be making how much? It doesn't sound like a lot.
No. And then times, 4 weeks or whatever out of the month or whatever. Your series was an ongoing series before Originals was completed. I started Canvas and was reached out regarding the moving to Originals. I actually got really well with my editor, but they didn't help me much content-wise. I think I preferred working more independently, and others might choose to utilize their editor more. For me, there's more or less zero influence from the editor, and she only contacted me when she noticed a typo. Yeah, I see from another comment you made comedy. They're talking about swearing.
No, you can do that. You can swear on there.
Yeah, so this isn't really like, they're just talking about, daily pass, watching ads or whatever, and different
if you had to translate their languages, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the big ones are, I believe, that, what happens if you have to move your comic? Okay, when you move from Canvas to Originals, they ask you to scrap the chapters you've already made, either published or stored, and start anew. Okay? Hi, number one, you have to remove the old chapters from the website and anywhere else online, but you don't need to remake the art. You can repost it as is. You actually get paid for it the same rate. Payment is per episode rather than per hour. So it doesn't matter to them. Number two, to what extent do you give your IP to WEBTOON? And what are the things the contract restricts you to do on your own comic? Each comic is probably different.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, they own a non-majority percent of it. But basically, they own enough.
49 and you get 51?
Yeah, just enough of it that you can't take it somewhere else and do something with it without their permission. There are restrictions like not posting the comic to other platforms, and you have to get their approval in certain cases. There's some restrictions on merch sales, but it's minimal. You mentioned renewal of the contract. Does this mean by the end of the contract, you'd have complete control over your IP? Contract covers one season. About a month before the season's over, WEBTOON checks your analytics and readerships, and they decide if they want to continue your contract for another season. If you agree to their offer, you sign a new contract stating you're agreeing on continuing your previous contract for another 50 episodes. Once the series is done, it stays on the platform for a few years.
It was
They said three, depending on the contract, and you continue receiving ad revenue payments. You can only continue the series independently once their IP rights time out 3 years. So this is everything that they said in the contract.
I'm confused though. So, okay. So you did a chapter, right? And
Yeah.
you did 50 pages or whatever. Or 50 panels or however they break it down. And then they decide they don't want to renew your thing. Does that mean you can no longer work on it anymore until 3 years is up?
Yes, basically. So you would not, and she said, I wouldn't give them something that was near and dear to me. Basically, like, I would
want to finish.
Yeah. What are the biggest advantages and disadvantages? Advantage, the pay is really good and it's consistent, which is nice compared to other ways of making money off of art, which can be less than ideal. It's a solid job in my opinion. Well, yeah, they're committing to at least a year.
As long as you get the money, as long as they renew you.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just stuck, you can't do anything.
No. Originals get a lot more eyes on them.
True. They promote it.
That is true. Actually on WEBTOON, it's kind of gamed. It's like basically Canvas is the farm club, I think, for originals. But the ones that people are reading, they're originals comics. Most of the time, they're not reading the Canvas comics. Your comic will be promoted more often. A lot more people go to originals to find new content to read. When you're on Canvas, a lot of what you put effort into is advertising for your own work, networking with other creators, etc.
Regress with originals, you pretty much just lay back and let the readers come to you through WEBTOON's efforts. Because they'll send it out, they'll put banner ads, they'll put it in.
They will send you email blasts, they'll send you text messages, they'll send you, So like the app will be like, oh, hey, a new original debuted today. So really honestly, it sucks, but like the only way you probably can make a living on WEBTOONs is if you play by their rules, which is you lock yourself into an originals contract and you basically become an employee of WEBTOON. But
this is one positive, and I will give them this. Okay. A lot of readers from the original will be interested in seeing other projects. And so basically, since you can use it as an advertisement for other work, and they said that they had other companies reach out to them to work on stuff because they saw their other work through WEBTOONs. So I will give them that. That is definitely a positive.
Yeah.
I do think that is.
I think it's hard. It's basically like everything in the creative space is give and take. What are you willing to give up?
I would agree with that. Whether it be comics or shows or games or whatever. 100%.
And a lot of people, they think they get to have everything. Like you can have 100% of something, but that something might not make any money, or you might be better off getting, 25% of something that makes millions and millions of dollars.
Right. So, you have to ask yourself.
But you don't get complete control over it. You know what I'm saying? So like you really have to ask yourself, in a lot of ways, it's better to, I think, use the platform or whatever to build your name and then go do something else afterwards.
Which is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Disadvantages. You get pretty much no oversight in the advertisement of your comic. I didn't think this would bother me until I actually saw the advertisements and felt they deeply misunderstood my work. I suspect their advertising team just skims through the comic for some assets and don't think about it too much. They said you're locked into the contract. Once you agreed to do however many pages, that's it. You legally have to do them.
Yeah.
If you run out of inspiration and love for the series midway, you have to grind it out. On the bright side, WEBTOONs are very generous, allowing you to take breaks whenever you need, or more or less, which is nice.
I do know that. I know that, and I know there are some creators that went on hiatus for like a month or whatever, and then they probably just put that extra month at the end of your contract. Like you still owe so many episodes, but like you can have a month off.
This is also interesting. WEBTOONs, you owe the most contract stuff, but they have no legal help when it comes to guest appearances. So if you want to do collaboration with your other friends and authors, you're allowed, but you have to make sure that all the legal hoops are jumped through, that you do it. You have all necessary rights and everything else to be legally you're legally liable.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll wrap it up there. This actually went really long. Now, I will say that, this does absolutely positively confirm that contract, but I do believe that this is a better way to take a look at. Like, you really have to weigh the advantages and disadvantages, because nobody's going to give you something for free, right?
No,
Nobody's going to help you for free.
I will say the throughout these, I don't think it's a plant. I don't think this person's a plant. It might have been, somebody who had a good experience go say something. That people were chatting amongst themselves, but I don't think they are.
There's too much.
They're pretty honest about it. I do think that this is a real person. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I can say that.
Yeah, I think after reading this, I agree. But
I hadn't seen it before. You had seen some of it.
I saw some of it. I didn't read this far down, but no, I think they're being very honest about it. And I think that people need to understand. That's like, even there were a lot of analogies made with Tokyo Pop, the OEL, the original English language manga they did back in the day. And they said, yeah, the deal was kind of shitty. It was, but they actually would fly creators to Los Angeles to explain it to them in detail.
Yeah, with their people.
So,
I mean, take for that as what you will. So
yeah, so it's, I don't know, guys.
Ironically, we worked for Tokyo Pop before.
We did do work for Tokyo Pop.
They did a web comic.
They were trying to compete with WEBTOON, yeah.
And guess what? They hired us to be consultants.
They did. They did. And
well, you hired us to be consultants.
What not to do? As did, well, we weren't hired, but consulted with Thrillbent. And we told them what to do and what not to do.
We didn't have big enough social media platforms, so they wouldn't bring. And then that wasn't Wade's decision. He actually wanted to bring us on. And then we also did some stuff with Tapas. When they started, we actually were one of the ones they brought in to start the forums.
Oh my God, yeah.
And we couldn't. At the time we were with another groups, we could not put our comic on there because we had a deal with them that we weren't allowed to.
Oh no, I'll talk about it, because actually, we were with KeenSpot when KeenSpot was pretty big, and KeenSpot, I don't actually have. I mean, there are some issues maybe about the ad revenue back then, but I mean, as far as them as people, I can't say I have any complaints.
No, they were always nice.
I think they were actually. I still talk to Chris Crosby sometimes on social media, and they did really well. They actually got Marry Me was one of their comics, and that got picked up for a movie.
Plus, they were cool. They always had a table at SDCC. If you wanted to go, you were more than welcome to go hang out and stay in the house. And...
True story. So we had a chance to, and I didn't do it, but we had a chance.
Well, no, it's because your grandpa got sick.
My grandfather was dying. Yeah, I had to go see my dying grandfather or hang out with. It was Markiplier, because Markiplier, his brother. I don't know if people know this, but Markiplier's brother actually is the artist of Two Kinds, which was on KeenSpot. And they were all hanging out at a house together and this was like 12 years ago. Like, he wasn't.
It was that long. Was it that long ago?
It was like 2012, 2013. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But yeah, they wanted to have us out, and so I could have like met Markiplier and all that stuff before he was huge. And I, but my grandfather was dying. Of course, I'm going to stay here. But yeah, they were always. I never had a problem with them personally. I thought they were always pretty solid. But anyway.
We couldn't put our stuff on Tapas because of it, but we at the time. But they did have us help them with their forums and some other stuff.
We're gonna wrap this up. Yeah. Let's wrap this up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.
Bye.